Welcome back. You're watching Newsx. My name is Vineet Malhotra. U.S. President Donald Trump has for the 30th time said that he stopped the war between India and Pakistan. While there is no surprise since he wants that UN Peace Prize desperately, it's obvious that Trump is trying everything he can to get a trade deal with India. His pressure tactics are five-folds: cornering India on the Russian oil imports, signaling U.S. is increasing business with Pakistan, constantly needling India on mediation with Pakistan, calling India a dead economy, and even taunting India on future oil imports. In this quest, what Trump doesn't realize is that he has completely changed how he is perceived by India. India's response to Trump's tactics has been calm and forward-looking, and we have refused to give in to his tantrums and maintained that national interest remains top priority. But to what extent will Trump go on, in fact, to get his deal? Will the next round of negotiations see some progress towards the India-US deal, or are we going to hit further roadblocks? That's what we discuss with some prominent names. Dr. Jayajit Bhattacharya, President of the CDPR, with us on the show. Dr. Sharad Kohli, Senior Economist, joins us on the program as well. Last but not the least, Gautam Mukherjee, Senior Journalist, with us on the show as well. Dr. Kohli, I'll begin with you. Well, we've discussed this before as well, but let's try and look at a crystal ball now. Trump is pretty predictable. He tries to be unpredictable, Dr. Kohli, but in that unpredictability, he's become very predictable because we know he's going to say one thing and do another. Is that something that is also expected when it comes to India? We obviously have a trade deficit with the United States, but the fact of the matter is that the Americans want to counter China. They do not want the Chinese to in fact creep up to $30 trillion. Which is not difficult for China in the next few years. They need India to become that impediment. They need India to become that backup. Do you think when it comes to Donald Trump, there is a huge distance between the lip and the cup?
Good evening, Vineet. Good evening to my fellow panelists and Newsx viewers. Well, I was, contemplating a peace prize for tariffs. So we could have a new prize around the world. Let's call it the tariff peace prize. We badly need that. But forget about the Nobel Peace Prize for the moment. He said he stopped 6 wars, and probably first a war happens, a war is created, and then of course it is stopped. So anyway, let's not get into that territory. Let's focus on the question you've asked. I think the deal will happen. That's my crystal ball says the deal will happen, as you rightly said. United States cannot afford to, have these kind of relations with India, what Donald Trump is doing. India has got a very strategic location. And India is the second biggest Asian giant after China. So it could counter China. I think America needs India. And it cannot afford to spoil relations with India in the manner in which Donald Trump has been dealing for the moment. Because the reality, as far as Donald Trump is concerned, I've seen it sinks in, but it sinks in gradually when he starts realizing, as you rightly said, he is unpredictable. But as you rightly said again, he is predictable in many ways. So what is the only constant in Donald Trump is the change. So that's what I feel. I think the flip-flop is going to happen. It may take a while. I think the Russian factor and the Russian oil is counting on his mind. The Ukraine war, he said, one of his aides said, I was shocked to hear what the aide said, that India is responsible for the deaths happening in the Ukraine because you're funding the war in Ukraine, in Russia. And, I completely disagree with that. I refute that because I think we are a sovereign country. We've got a right to deal with whichever country we want to, irrespective of what relations it has with another country. That's point number one. And the hypocrisy here is, and the irony of the situation is that US by itself has from January to July imported $2 billion worth of goods. Some of those goods are indispensable. There are no alternates available. One of them I can name is the fertilizer, which US wasn't able to find anywhere, and desperately the farming sector in US needed that fertilizer, and it was imported from Russia. So this is hypocrisy. You are trying to blacklist a country. You're trying to impose sanctions on a country. You're trying to threaten secondary tariffs on a country. And you are yourself and your own allies in NATO. They have been dependent on Russian energy ever since the war in Ukraine started. So what kind of sanctions are these? It's a sanction of convenience. When I need, there are no sanctions, but you want to impose it on some other person. So first of all, I think I completely refute what the aide of White House, whosoever that was, saying. I think President Trump is trying to twist the whole game forcibly in his favor. And a classic example is removal of Erica. the head of BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, when she said that 73,000 jobs only new jobs have been created as compared to, over 250,000 in the previous year. So there is a slowdown in the US, and I think it is improper and it is inappropriate for American administration or Trump administration to hide that slowdown. In my view, Vineet, I mean, my own analysis says that US is technically in recession. And this can be proved by several aspects. You look at the job creation there. Look at the problem with the small businesses are facing. You look at the investment which is coming into US. Look at the real ground level inflation. Poor Jerome Powell. I really pity that Fed chairperson. He's such a disciplined person, such a sweet person. That he is, and he's going to be axed soon because I don't think there'll be a rate cut in America. President Trump says everything is hunky-dory, we are doing very well, so please cut down the rates of Fed, which I don't think is going to happen because 9:2 was the weighting in FOMC a few days ago against rate cut, which categorically means that inflation right now, on record, it may be shown as 2-3%, but when you go to my friends in the US were telling me, when you go to the stores, you find that you get drained out of whatever you have in your pocket, and the same amount of goods that you carry home, which you used to carry earlier, you have to pay so many more dollars for that. So I think the situation of the US economy is not very good. $36 trillion of liability on US on a GDP of $29-30 trillion. He wants to make America great again. In the process, he is trying to drain out so much of economic wealth of America in more ways than one, whether by way of inflation. Once inflation sets in America, I'm sure you will see a hit on the US dollar. You're going to see exodus of investments from there. You're going to see other companies, other countries for that matter, who have invested in US Treasury. There's going to be a fear. There's going to be a frenzy amongst the investors in the US Treasury. It's going to cause mayhem. And, I don't know what he's up to, who are his advisors, who is he listening to, who's sounding him these economic policies, and why is he doing what he is doing, issuing letters to more than 60 to 90 countries, of tariffs everywhere. And just wait for August 8th, the first Qayamat ka date, the deadline he's given to Russia that you stop the war, else, the usual petty style of Donald Trump. He's going to probably levy secondary tariffs after that. And probably India maybe, so that's my only concern. Coming back to what you said, we've come a full circle in what I described. If these secondary tariffs, Vineet, come, I think that will be an alarm bell as far as India is concerned. But otherwise, I really don't see any reason why this deal will not happen. There are so many goods which India is supplying right now. There's a long list in leather, footwear, toys, chemicals, plant and machinery, electronics, gems and jewelry. There's a very long list. And some of this stuff I came to know from America, from some of my friends, that people in America, in certain parts of America, certain pockets of America, they become so used to using these goods at the prices at which they're available in the shelves. That they will find it very difficult if they land up at 25% or after secondary tariff at 50%, 40%, whatever expensive. It's going to be very hard for consumers. So consumers are going to be, I think President Trump is completely delineated from the reality on ground. I'm just waiting for a couple of weeks to pass by when you see this inflation hitting the American economy very, very hard, Vineet. So therefore, for that reason, I see that there'll be a turnaround and the deal will happen. Der hai, andher nahi is what I would say as far as the deal is concerned.
All right, Gautam, where do you see yourself, in terms of the India, United States relationship? A trade deal is obviously something that we have been aspiring to have with them since a very, very long time. But Donald Trump does not do anything without theatrics. Is this theatrics that we are witnessing right now, which will perhaps produce a deal that we did not even anticipate is going to be that good of a deal? I sound like Donald Trump right now. Or do you think that this is something that India needs to be wary of while dealing with the Americans? Because we obviously have our own trade priorities, to take care of as well, including our farmers.
I think, Vineet, that we are moving away from the idea of achieving a viable trade deal with the United States. The reason being that it isn't just the 25%, which, if that's all it was, we might have managed, because there are many exemptions to the tariffs, and there are really not much of an impact of this 25% deal in terms of our GDP. It will affect some of the heavy employment areas such as textiles, gems and jewelry, and shrimps and so on. But we could channel these through third parties like Britain and the UAE unless he puts similar taxes as he did on Vietnam that says that any third party routes will also be taxed at a higher rate. He could also ask for certificates of origin to complicate it. But, when you're issuing tariff letters to 90 countries, you're going to lose the woods for the trees if you are, secondary sanctioning a lot of countries, the woods being China and the trees being everyone else. So if you're going to do the same treatment as you are planning for China to all the other countries, particularly India, which has been singled out, you're not going to. Then there's this whole business of penalties. Now, if you're going to impose all of this, there is very little India can do about it. So I think India is proceeding with its existing FTAs, the latest being the one with the UK. It is pressing hard on speeding up the FTAs which are in the pipeline, for example, with the EU and other smaller countries. And we will try to weather the storm on that basis. We have also made very clear that we are going to buy whatever we feel like from Russia, and there is very little America can do about it except sanction us, and we are ready for those sanctions. So it's going to be a rough patch, but the longest it can be is the 3 years or so that Trump is in office. And we've been through worse. When we detonated our nuclear bombs, we were sanctioned, and that lasted for quite a while. Our economy kept growing through it, and then they were lifted because there wasn't really very far they could go. I think Trump should concentrate on doing what he can to stop the Ukraine-Russian war and not try to bully India. India is not willing to be bullied. And that is more than apparent with our reactions ever since he began his threats. Vinny.
All right, Dr. Bhattacharya. Well, India needs to be prepared because, there could be an opportunity here. There could also be, a precedent where India is going to not agree to everything what the Americans have to say. But the fact of the matter is we are better off dealing with America positively than we are establishing any kind of a negative rapport that may harm us in countering China and becoming perhaps the third or the second largest economy in the next few years. We need the Americans, don't we?
Yeah, needless to say, this is a very complex situation. There's no straight answer. So everything that you said, Vineet, is absolutely true. We need America. If anyone is saying that we don't need them, that's not true at all. We need to grow fast, and for that, US is important for us. Unfortunately, if you look at it the other way around, we are only about 5% of exports from US. Even though I'm saying 5%, that's still very significant from an economic terms. Now, in terms of economic blocks, we are actually number 4th because there is ahead of us, there is China and Europe, and only then we come in. So there is US, China, Europe, and then we come in because Europe behaves like a block. It is one economic block. And so for quite some time, we will not become the third largest economic block. We may be the third largest economy, but not the economic block. And we do need to have access to these markets. We need the European market. We need the American market. And if possible, we need to crack open the Chinese market, the way China has cracked open the Indian market, and we allow everything from China to come in. But you try and sell anything to China, that's very, very difficult unless it's a raw material. They will only buy raw material, and therefore India behaves like a colony in front of China. And so coming back to the US issue, if you look at the trade deals that US has cracked till now, they've all been beneficial to US from the Trump administration perspective. They've been able to access the European Union market at zero duty while they have imposed a 15% tariff on imports from US. Same with the Thai deal, same with the Vietnam deal, and so on and so forth. So it's from the US administration perspective, they seem to be on a winning streak. Is that good for the US economy is a different question altogether. I will not touch it in this particular discussion. But from an Indian perspective, therefore, we can't afford to stay away for long. However, if we jump in the terms and conditions that the US is laying out, please do keep in mind that we'll be signing the agreement for not just 1 year or 2 year, but for generations. So the next generations will come in and curse us as to why we signed this one-sided agreement. Why did we put our farmers under the bus and ignore them completely? Why did we ignore our MSMEs completely? So it is not just a signing of a 1 year, 2 year agreement. It's a generational signing that happens. In addition, any new FTA that India signs will take our concessions to the US as the baseline and then will take things forward, which means that we start losing everything. For every other FTA, we have to open up our agricultural market, we have to open up our dairy market, we have to have zero duty imports allowed, and so on and so forth. So that is clearly not an acceptable proposition. But what does India do? As you rightly said, India can't say we won't do this and we won't do that because that's a framework that the US has laid out. So it is a complex situation. We need to work through it calmly. Even with smaller entities like Maldives, we did not hit back at them. We were very, very patient. It has paid off. I'm sure patience would probably pay off with the US. I have full faith in the negotiators of this government. I'm sure they'll come out with a deal which will overall be beneficial for the people of our country.
Absolutely right. And Dr. Kohli, the Prime Minister also spoke just a few days back. We are not going to discontinue buying oil from Russia. We may not buy defense equipment, the F-35s from the Americans as a result of this, unwanted provocation from Donald Trump. And the Prime Minister also spoke of something which Mahatma Gandhi has always propagated, and that is do Swadeshi, buy Swadeshi, promote Swadeshi, and export Swadeshi. That's, of course, probably a serendipity, which is going to come to light if Donald Trump continues down this road.
Absolutely. I think buying Swadeshi, buying local, being vocal for local has been a slogan for a very long time now. Ever since, we started with Make in India, and, we have to cut down on imports. If you see our dependability on Chinese imports, which is most alarming, more than $100 billion plus of trade deficit with China, and it just keeps growing by the day. But if you look at the deals which President Trump has done, I would like to add, I'm sorry to say that, I would like to add poor in front of the country's name. Poor Indonesia, poor Vietnam, poor UK. You know why? Because it's been a deal of bully. It's not a deal. They've been bullied. I'll send my goods. Don't impose any tariffs. They will land there just free. Whatever I want to send, I'll send. But when your goods come, for example, Indonesia, I will levy 19%. This is not a deal. This is the classic case of a bully. So deal is when both the parties, deal is what India did with UK. That let's sit down together. You understand the structure of my economy. We understand the structure of your economy. We see the weighted average of the goods being, what kind of goods we are importing, what kind of goods we are exporting. Like, for example, the automobile which we signed with as part of the Indo-UK deal, that had a limited quota. So that's the way it is done. We have to look at the size of the India and US economy. What surprises me, Vineet, is that Trump administration failing to understand the structure of Indian economy. They are only thinking of America. Whereas when you do a deal, the basic premise is that you think of both the parties. I think a little bit about you. You think a little bit about me. Fine, I'm working in my interest. You're working in your interest. But we have to keep each other's interest as well in mind. I cannot just be thinking. But what I'm finding in the American deal, Vineet, where I went through all the deals that they have done, I found it was only and only America first. Well, those countries must have done the deals under compulsion, which is what President Trump wants us to give a free dairy ride, a free agri ride, whatever crops I send. In fact, Dr. Bhattacharya was saying that the generations to come would curse us. I agree. I would like to add one sentence. This generation is going to kill us.
I mean, you're going to see farmers, on the road. Imagine you have a genetically modified, soya bean and corn, which looks so beautiful, go to the stores, and who's going to buy here? And you get those dairy products, in fact, the milk which President Trump wants us to import, the dairy products, they are non-vegetarian. I'm a vegetarian. I would not like to consume. 38% in India are vegetarians. And if your cow and your buffalo, whatever animal that is, if that is being fed with meat, obviously the milk is also meat. Your chara is meat, so your milk is meat. So, I mean, how can you, in a country as sensitive as that, where we value our sentiments, we value our whatever traditions we follow, we cannot allow a free run for that. So the generations to come, I agree with Dr. Bhattacharya, will kill, but this generation is going to kill us. First of all, look at the farmers. As it is, we see farmers agitated on smaller issues like price and so many things, and this is going to cause hue and cry. And why should India compromise its sovereignty anyway? Why should we stop importing oil from Russia just because America says we start importing? I mean, we are still getting a discount, by the way, of $2 to $3 a barrel. It used to be $5 to $6 a barrel at one point of time, but the discount has gone down. 1/3 of our oil is coming from Russia. So what? What's the big deal? You want everything to be happening with America, and you don't want us to deal because Vineet, either President Trump loves America so much that she's my beloved, I cannot afford that she starts talking to somebody else or she's roaming around with somebody else. Either we are his beloved. He wants us not to deal with here, not to participate in BRICS. India should not talk. India should only and only deal with America. I think he's forgotten that people holding key positions in the White House are Indians. America runs on Indians. Today America, if you take Indians out of America, I'm including the PIOs there, America will come to a standstill because the entire tech sector is run by Indians. It is going to fail, absolutely. So I'm sure President is aware, and President Trump will, I think these Indians must go and convey, I would like to voice a concern here. Why can't these Indians get together and go and say, if they are patriots, if they really think of India, they should go and tell him that, what are you trying to force on India? Why should you force on India? We've been in your country for a very long time. We run your country. We are amongst the wealthiest people here. We contribute most in terms of taxes. And you can't do this to our country. I think the voices, you will start hearing them soon. In fact, I am anticipating, Vineet, a kind of a protest on the streets of America. We saw one protest happening in Los Angeles yesterday. I'm sure this is going to spread because now the directions are coming down to Fed, direction coming down to Bureau of Labor Statistics. He wants to change the bureaucracy in America. I'm sure this is going to create unease and disturb the peace of the bureaucratic America in the times to come, Vineet.
All right. Fair enough. We've run out of time, but Gautam, concluding thoughts from you, and then we move on.
Yes, well, it's down to America. We have made our red lines clear, and we will proceed with or without their cooperation. We are not trying to thumb our noses at them, but we will not let them ride roughshod over us. I think this is very clear.
All right, fair enough. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us and sharing your thoughts. We've run out of time.